I went to sleep in my mother's bed as I usually would have, and in the middle of the night, she woke me up and asked me to go and sleep in my own room. I had never slept in my own bed before, and went in there and got out my piggy bank and some books and started to count the change in my piggy bank as I fell asleep. Soon after, I awoke in the arms of a strange man who I did not know. His hands covered my nose and mouth, and he calmed me down by telling me he was an undercover police officer.
Before we continue, I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Drop your location in the comments, and let's see how far this story has reached around the world. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. After being rushed to the hospital, Jennifer's condition was critical. She couldn't speak, not a word. Doctors weren't even sure if her voice would ever return. For a child who once sang constantly, who filled every room with sound and energy, that silence was almost harder to understand than the injuries themselves. But here's what makes this case so disturbing. The only person who saw what happened was also the victim, and she was just 8 years old. Taken from her bed in the middle of the night, left in a remote field, and the person responsible believed she would never be able to describe him. He was wrong, but to understand how everything unfolded, we need to go back to the summer of 1990 in Dickinson, Texas. This is where we meet Jennifer Schuett. She wasn't quiet. She wasn't shy. She was loud in the best way possible. Always talking, always asking questions, always singing. People who knew her remember her as someone who filled space just by being in it. At home, she lived with her mother, Elaine. Just the two of them. A small household, but a close one. They depended on each other in every way. But Jennifer had one fear that followed her everywhere. The dark. To her, darkness wasn't just absence of light. It was something else. Something unknown. Something she couldn't explain but deeply believed was dangerous. So most nights, she slept close to her mother. That was her comfort, her safety. But on the night of August 9th, 1990, something broke that routine. Jennifer had been outside earlier playing, and when she came back in, she couldn't settle down. She was restless, awake, moving around, and her mother, Elaine, had to be up early for work the next morning. She was exhausted, so she made a decision that seemed small at the time. Just this once, Jennifer would sleep in her own room. Jennifer agreed. She went down the hallway, into her room, and flipped on the overhead light. Bright, almost too bright, but it made her feel safer. To calm herself, she did something simple. She dumped out her piggy bank and started counting coins on her bed, one by one. A rhythm, a distraction, something to focus on instead of the silence. And at some point, she fell asleep. Hours passed. Nothing seemed unusual, until morning came.
His hands covered my nose and mouth, and he calmed me down by telling me he was an undercover police officer. He placed me in his vehicle, and we started to drive through town, passing my grandparents' house and ending up in the parking lot of my elementary school. We were still on summer break. I had just finished my second grade year, so I was getting ready to start my third grade year at Silvernagle Elementary in Dickinson, and the school is maybe 2 miles from where my apartment complex was located.
Elaine walked to her daughter's room to wake her up. The bed was empty, the room was still, and the window was open. At first, she thought maybe Jennifer had gotten up early. Maybe she wandered. Maybe something simple. But then reality hit. The screen was missing. And that's when panic set in. Police were called immediately. Officers arrived quickly, trying to determine if this was a runaway situation or something far more serious. But very early on they knew. Something wasn't right. There were no signs of a child leaving on her own. No trail. No indication she had simply walked away. Only an open window. And silence. But what no one knew yet was that the most important part of this story had already happened hours earlier. While the town slept, Jennifer woke up, but she wasn't in her room. She was outside, confused, disoriented, still trying to understand if she was dreaming. Then she realized she was being carried by someone she didn't recognize, and that's when fear fully set in. She tried to scream, but she couldn't. Something stopped her immediately, and in that moment, she disappeared from her life as she knew it. What followed was a series of stops, movements, and attempts to control the situation. The man told her he was a police officer. He said she was safe, that she needed to trust him, but the details didn't match. He took her to familiar places, even near her school. He tried to create a sense of normalcy in a situation that was anything but normal.
So We were there in the parking lot. He offered me candy, which I refused, as I learned in school to not take candy from strangers, but also had learned that law enforcement could be trusted. So I kind of felt like I was being pulled in two different directions. But my gut was telling me that something just wasn't right about this entire situation. My mother wasn't one that would go out and party or even hang out with friends, so I'd never been watched by anyone except for grandparents. He told me that my mom was going to pull into the parking lot to pick me up soon, and she never came.
But Jennifer started noticing inconsistencies, things that didn't make sense, things that didn't align, and that quiet realization changed everything. Eventually, the situation escalated. She was taken away from familiar areas and driven toward a remote location outside town, a place with no homes, no lights, no safety, and that's where she was left, alone, injured, barely conscious, but still alive. What followed were hours that Jennifer later would struggle to describe, a fight just to stay awake.
There, after this point, are times where I black out from him either choking me or trying to break my neck. The next thing I remember was waking up and him dragging me behind him through this field by my ankles. So I could feel like sticks poking me in the back, thorns, but I just stayed silent and played dead at one point, not even realizing that during one of those times that I had blacked out, he had actually slit my throat from ear to ear. He laid me in a fire ant pile soon after that and then left. I laid in the field for 12 to 14 hours. We don't know the exact time that I was kidnapped, so we can only estimate it was about 12 to 14 hours after the attack occurred.
A group of children nearby discovered her and immediately called for help. Emergency responders arrived and rushed her to the hospital. Doctors went into emergency procedures to save her life. They succeeded, but she couldn't speak. When she woke up, she was trapped in a different kind of fear. She couldn't describe what happened. And worse, she couldn't trust the people around her, especially men in uniforms or authority roles. To her, they all represented the same danger she had just escaped. Investigators quickly realized they had a major obstacle. Their only witness couldn't speak, so they gave her a notebook, and that changed everything. Jennifer began writing. At first, it was simple, basic descriptions, feelings, words, but then it became more focused. Details started emerging. A vehicle, objects, physical traits, patterns she remembered. And then she wrote something that shifted the entire investigation. A name, Dennis. From that moment, investigators began building a sketch based entirely on her memory. Every detail came from an 8-year-old trying to survive something no child should ever experience. But despite the sketch, the case went cold. Years passed. Jennifer grew up carrying everything. The visible scar, the emotional weight, the memories she never forgot. But she didn't stop living. She went to school, built a career, created a life. But always, somewhere in the back of her mind, she was still searching. Then in 2008, the case reopened. A new investigative team believed modern DNA testing could finally solve it. Evidence collected years earlier was re-examined using updated technology. And then in 2009, a breakthrough. A DNA match. The name came back. Dennis Earl Bradford. The same name Jennifer had written as a child. When his old photo was compared to the original sketch, it matched almost perfectly. He was arrested soon after. At first, he denied everything. But once confronted with evidence, he eventually confessed. The case that had gone silent for nearly 2 decades finally had answers. But before trial could take place, he took his own life in prison. Jennifer never got her courtroom moment, but she still had something left to do. She prepared a victim impact statement and later read it at his gravesite, closing a chapter that had defined most of her life. And then something unexpected happened. She rebuilt everything. A family, a future, a life doctors once told her might never happen. She became a mother. And today, she speaks about survival, not as something that defines her in the past, but as something that shaped who she became. Because in the end, the most important part of this story isn't just what happened to her. It's what she refused to let it take away. The question that always remains is simple.
Like and subscribe so as to see more of crime videos like this.
How does someone survive something like that and still choose to keep going? Drop your thoughts below.